Every time I come back here to the islands, to Oahu, Honolulu, where we used to live, I always make sure that I take a day, I go by myself, and I go visit all my old haunts. So today I went by, first I visited my grandfather and my grandmother's grave. Then I went by my old high school. Then I went by my old middle school and all the places I used to get in trouble, all the places I used to get arrested.
I was evicted when I was 14 years old.
But I'll show you where we used to live. It's a 3-story apartment efficiency building, and I live right there on the first floor.
And then we were forced off the island of Hawaii to move, of all places, we had to move to Nashville. And we lived in a little motel, and I was trying to remain as positive as I could.
It's crazy because life is so ironic and so unpredictable. That's the place where we were evicted from. And that's where we came home, and there was an eviction notice on the and we were forced to move off the island because we couldn't afford to pay the rent. Going through it. Stay strong, keep pushing through, because again, on the other side is a little something better, because I'm living proof of that.
Get your ass kicked, get back up, and you put the gloves back on and you swing away.
I slept in a bedroom. There was a 1-bedroom efficiency. I slept in a bedroom. My parents slept on a pull-out couch in the living room. And every day I used to walk out and I said, it must be so cool to live in a place like that. I hope one day, I can live in something like that, or we could live in something like that.
I wanted to be something, and it was important to me to be something. It was important to me that I didn't fail.
If you are out there and you're struggling, and a lot of you are, and you're struggling to make ends meet, struggling to pay the rent, when you go eat at a restaurant, you got to look at the prices first before you actually look at the selections. I know what it's like. I've been down that road, and that it's hard. It ain't easy, but I'm telling you that if you're going through it, stay strong, have faith, keep pushing through. I've said this before, and I'm living proof of it. On the other side of your struggle is something good. On your other side of your struggle is something better. Other side of your struggle is some sort of success. So keep pushing through if you're struggling.
Really, the two things I want to say are, you got to be the hardest workers in the room. The thing that has worked for me is to remember the hard times. And I'm sure you guys all have your processes. And again, I'm going to tell you what's worked for me. So before a big movie comes out, anything big that would happen, I would always take a moment and I'd just remind myself, all right, I was evicted when I was 14. We were kicked off the island. We couldn't live in Hawaii. Had no place to live. I got to remember that. And it allows me then to be present in the moment. What helps me is to keep the hard times in the front of my mind, because it allows me to go into these big moments that I've worked my ass off, and you guys have worked your ass off. It allows me to go into these big moments with a different perspective. Now, doesn't mean you don't smile, doesn't mean you don't laugh and joke, right? You're happy, I'm a happy guy. But when it comes to business, and when it comes to executing, it's up against this. And I got to go that way. Well, I think one of the keys is, remember where you came from. You gotta keep it in here. And it really has to, it should drive you. It should. It works for me. It should drive you. You got all the talent in the world. It's all here. It's all here. Everybody's the next best thing. Everybody's the thing. Everybody's the best. It's all here. For me, when I realize there's great power in being myself, same thing for all of us. But I believe it's the most powerful thing that we could be. It's easier said than done, because I struggled for a long time trying to figure out, well, what's my identity and who am I? And for example, when I got to Hollywood, the very first time I got to Hollywood in the early 2000s, I was told, if you want to be a star, then maybe you shouldn't talk about wrestling, maybe you shouldn't go to the gym as much, maybe you shouldn't raise your silly eyebrow. There was a lot of things like that. Then when you don't know, you buy into it. And so I thought, okay, don't call yourself The Rock. Okay, so I went through that entire process for years trying to figure out who I was. And then when you look back at my earlier career, the films I was doing, they were good, but just not, like, oh, that's how I like to see him, because he is his true authentic self. We want to make sure that we have people around us who are inspired to do well and reach for and continue to share our vision, but also at times say, I'm not quite too sure if that's the right thing to do. So look, I've had a wonderful career, especially coming from being evicted, and those titles are nice and everything is fine, but honestly, I'm so grateful to be in the position I'm in, and I never take anything for granted.
The key for me was, where does it start? What's the anchor? So I could have all these ambitions, and you guys have all these ambitions, which is great. It's important. I'll play this role, you'll play that role. I'll execute this thing, and it'll come out this summer. You guys will execute this thing during the summer, right, when it's time to really put in a lot more work. But the key with me is just always finding what the anchor is. And the anchor is getting up at 4 o'clock in the morning every day before anybody else and grounding my thought process as no one will outwork me. No one. I'll start with this. 2 hands, putting it to work. The anchor for me has always been the work in terms of the weight room training. I found that with depression, one of the most important things you could realize is that you're not alone. You're not the first to go through it. You're not going to be the last to go through it. And oftentimes it happens. You feel like you're alone, and you feel like it's only you, and you're in your bubble. And I wish I had someone at that time who could just pull me aside and, hey, it's going to be okay. But I wish I knew that. Just got to remember. Hold on to that fundamental quality of faith. Have faith. But on the other side of your pain is something good. After about a month and a half of staying in that little apartment and cleaning, I got a phone call from the head coach of the team who cut me, the head coach of the Calgary Stampeders. He called me and he said, hey, I know we cut you, but I'd like you to come back. I said, okay, I appreciate that, coach. Thank you very much. Think about it. He said, okay, great. I hung up the phone, and my dad said, you're going to do it, right? I said, no, I don't think so. I think I'm done with that. I said, my gut tells me I'm done. He said, what are you going to do? I took a deep breath. I said, I'd like to get into the business. He said, what business? I said, the wrestling business. He said, you are throwing it all away. It is the worst mistake you will ever make. He said, you're ruining your career. I said, maybe I'll be no good. But I feel like in my heart I have to do this. And I either need you to train me or need you to not train me. My dad rose to the occasion. He said, I'll train you. And it wound up being one of the greatest chapters in my life.